What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about the worst British rulers. Who exactly were these terrible people? And even more interesting, what on earth horrible things did they do with their unchecked, unlimited royal power? Well, I'm excited to find out. So, let's take a look.
Britain has had many great rulers, some so-so rulers, and a good number of downright awful ones. But
Okay.
who is the unfairest of them all? Let's find out.
Wow, I love this topic. I feel like this particular topic is almost extra enticing and interesting to Americans because we can't really relate to the whole royalty monarchy thing. We don't have that. So we kind of enjoy learning about it, and not just the cool, interesting, traditional, nice stuff, but there's something about the evil, worst kings and queens that we also just can't look away at the same time, you know?
Did you ever have one of those days when you didn't really feel like doing much of anything? Maybe you eat a
Yes.
big meal, hang out with your friends, spend some money, and just put off that big pile of work that's building up. Well,
Is she? I knew it. She's talking about a British ruler. So what was so bad about this British ruler? King George the Fourth? Is the worst thing about him that he's super lazy? Because I feel like in all of history, being like the lazy ruler is probably the best of the worst. I'm afraid some of the people we're gonna learn about like did some really cruel, horrible things.
that's basically what George IV did every single day he was
Okay,
king. Although
okay.
he performed admirably as regent while his father George III suffered from mental illness, as soon as he became king in 1820, he started to think, why am I working so hard?
I'd love to know how they found this out. Is there someone in the history books, like a scribe back in the day, who wrote down like these details? And he was so lazy once he became king. But it's funny because you can't really choose if you become king or not, I suppose. So I almost kinda understand the mentality of like, once you're thrusted into the king position, not giving a hoot. I mean, obviously, I would hope I would be a better king and that I would give a hoot, but I'm not surprised someone like this existed, I guess.
Other than sleeping around a lot, spending money that Britain didn't have, and becoming morbidly obese,
Oh.
George IV didn't accomplish much of anything during his rule. When he died in 1830, newspapers openly celebrated his death.
No way. No way. No way newspapers openly celebrated that the king died. That is sad. But I guess he deserved it, honestly. I mean, if you're gonna be the lazy king, you deserve that to be your legacy. You deserve for the kingdom to celebrate when you're gone if you're just gonna do nothing, I suppose.
George IV was hated by his subjects, but at least they didn't kill him. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Charles I.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking maybe we're gonna progress from best of the worst rulers to the worst of the worst British rulers. And I'm a little scared about what that means.
He was one of those guys that had trouble getting along with people. He dissolved Parliament 3 times, once for 11 years, saying, "That's it, I'm tired of tripping over you losers when I'm trying to get things done around here."
These quotes are like magnificent but horrible at the same time. I'm tired of tripping over you losers. Man, is it that a lot of jerks, unfortunately, become kings throughout the history of the planet? Or does being a king or queen somehow, I mean, it must affect you mentally. It must do something to you, make you really believe you're better than everyone else when everyone is literally forced to kneel before you and kind of worship you as the king and queen of everything in the land. So maybe that's more of an explanation why there's so many bad rulers. It really gets to their head.
He started taking more money from people and insulting everybody's religion. Eventually, this led to 2 civil wars, both of which he lost. At the end of the Second War, they decided to remove Charles's crown along with the rest of his head. At the time of his death, he was considered such a bad ruler that Britain decided to get rid of the monarchy altogether and let ultra-Puritan Oliver Cromwell take over. Spoiler alert, that didn't go too well either.
I didn't even know about that. That at one point, so literally, because Charles the First was so bad, that single-handedly caused Britain to try to be like, we're not doing the whole king thing again. And as far as him being beheaded, I mean, live by the sword, die by the sword, I guess. Like, if you're gonna be a terrible king, it's kind of, I don't know, especially back in this day and age, I feel like they should know, as the king or queen, they should be well aware that it's not like today. Like, there weren't as many laws of the land. Like, the citizens are gonna come chop your head off. That's a possibility. That should have been in his mind, I feel like. That should have been on his mind when he was such a bad king.
Taking Charlie's head was slightly unfair because they did ask him to be king. It's not like he took the throne from the rightful heir, which is what our next ruler did.
Oh.
King Stephen used...
Oh, I actually did not know that there were British kings who forcibly took the throne. My British history is terrible. Terrible, I gotta say. But, I'm kind of making up for it now, I suppose.
Usurped the throne in 1135, which rightfully belonged to his cousin Matilda, because he didn't like the idea of a girl ruling England. To appease everybody, he then gave away a bunch of money, power, and titles.
What? And this worked. This worked. It's like I was saying, there's no rules back in the day. King Stephen took the throne from his female cousin, and everyone was like, wait, what is he doing? Hey! And he's like, here's some money and power and stuff. Here you go. And they're like, oh, okay, thank you. We like you. Cool. That's just how it goes.
To people who still kind of ended up thinking he was pretty lame. His cousin Matilda, along with the help of her half-brother, challenged him, and the country was thrown into a civil war which ran hot and cold until 1153.
I didn't realize there were so many British civil wars as well. Like, I guess my awareness of British history is just how big and powerful the British Empire was and how it touched so many parts of the world, but it shouldn't be all that surprising. There was a lot of chaos and craziness going on within the empire, and a lot of people trying to take control of it, actually. Makes sense when you think about it.
That's when King Stephen made the best decision of his entire rule, to give up. He allowed Matilda's son Henry to succeed him, the Civil War ended, and he died a year later. Next...
Interesting. So he was bad for taking the throne, plunging Britain into civil war 1 or 2 times, and then he gave it up. Does that redeem him at all? Not really. He was still pretty bad. Okay, so that's bad. We're up to number 3 now. 3, and then we have number 2 and number 1. So these rulers should be getting progressively worse, I imagine.
Next up is Edward II. You may remember him as the Prince from Braveheart.
Okay.
He lost a war with Scotland, turned all of his barons against him by repeatedly dispensing favors to certain young men in his court, to whom he showed a fancy, and was eventually deposed and imprisoned by his own wife.
It's kind of amusing that a lot of these stories are now ending with they had to give up the throne, their head was cut off, they were thrown in prison. So at least there was some kind of, like, mob justice against these terrible rulers, I suppose?
While imprisoned, he was murdered. Legend has it that the method used to kill him was a red-hot poker up the bum.
Come on. Again, it's the same scribe as before, writing down these important details about British history. How did Edward II die? Make sure to write that down, Francesco. It was a red-hot poker up the behind. Put that one down for the history books. I wonder if that's true. So he didn't just get thrown in jail. He had he has the most unfortunate ending so far in this entire list. It's not close. Red-hot poker up the bum. That's the worst. I don't know if anything's gonna top it on this list.
Gross. You know how someone's so bad at their job, but you let it go because they're such a nice person? Or somebody's a terrible person, but they're so good at their job, so you put up with it.
Okay.
Well, King John was both a bad king and a terrible person.
Okay, I was gonna say, is he like the most hated king ever? But he got the job done? No, he was hated and bad at his job.
Remember how awful Prince John from Robin Hood was? Well, he was even worse when he became king.
Ooh.
He instigated an unnecessary war with France and then continued to lose battle after battle, giving up a great deal of valuable territory.
So, oh yeah, see, this is extra terrible. Because some of the other kings are like, they're bad in other ways. They do favors for people, they lose money, they are selfish, or they don't do anything. This king, King John, is like getting British soldiers killed in battle, like being so bad at this war thing and starting wars. He's getting people killed, like in his stead. So that's a special type of bad ruler.
To make up for this, he raised taxes and cracked down even harder on his people.
What?
Civil war broke out, and he lost that battle too. But sometimes good can come from bad. He was so awful that his subjects forced him to sign the Magna Carta, one of Britain's most important and historic documents. This limited royal power and ensured the rights of feudal barons.
Oh my gosh, I would love to be there, like a fly on the wall, seeing King John forced to sign a document that's going to limit his power because of how terrible he was. Directly because of that. That would have been fascinating. Like, did they hold up the red hot poker? Did they get out the red hot poker and walk up behind him and he's like, okay, I'll sign it. I'll sign it. Please back away with the poker. That's exactly how it went. I know it.
It's hard to believe that English rulers could get much worse than that, but they do. The worst of the worst was Mary I, otherwise known as Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary. Now, this is a name that Americans are familiar with. I'm sure they even tried to teach us a little bit about Mary in in our history classes. I recognize this name, and I think most Americans would, but I don't know exactly what she did to earn this name, but I imagine it's quite bad.
Yeah, she was the daughter of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, the first of Henry's 6 wives.
Okay.
She wasn't very happy with how her dad pushed her mother aside for Anne Boleyn, or how he pushed aside the Catholic Church. You know, classic stepkid stuff. So when she came to power, she was determined to bring Catholicism back to England.
Okay.
She revived old heresy laws and burned almost 300 people at the stake because they refused to abandon Protestantism.
Whoa. Yes, this is a special type of evil. Okay.
This was pretty shocking. Britain killed a lot of people in pretty disgusting ways, but even by medieval standards, burning at the stake was pretty extreme.
Yeah, is that worse? Is that worse than the red hot poker? I don't know. I feel like you shouldn't even joke about this stuff, like hundreds of people getting burnt to death, like for their beliefs. That's genuinely horrible.
Argued that this only further ingrained the Protestant faith in England because it showed that people were willing to die for their beliefs.
Right,
So,
right.
those are the most
Dang. She is the worst. Bloody Mary? Is there more to her story? Or is that just a snippet? Man. Yeah, that is horrible. That alone definitely earns her the #1 spot. I wonder if there's even more stuff she did.
terrible people to have ever graced or disgraced the throne with their presence. As far as horrible rulers go, England really does give Westeros a run for its money. And don't even get me started on the rest of Europe. Thanks for watching.
Wow, fascinating, fascinating. And again, it's sort of extra interesting from like an American point of view. This British royalty stuff, or royalty anywhere in the world really, because it's not something Americans identify with. So we kind of just like sit back and we're like, oh, I don't really understand all that. And in the modern day, it seems like all fine and dandy. But learning about some of this history of rulers and stuff can be both fascinating and delightful, but also kind of scary. scary, some of the people who got to be in power. Man, this video was by Anglophenia, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I enjoy her presentation and sort of lighthearted delivery of these terrifying, terrible acts of horribleness by the worst British rulers. But as far as the information and educational part of this, I enjoyed it. So anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to British culture and stuff in Britain I've never seen or learned before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.